Good day, I'm Haname Salisa and I will be showing with you the Sustainable Development Goals through an assessment done with the country of Senegal. Senegal is a country in Western Africa, located at the westernmost point of the continent and served by multiple air and maritime travel routes. Senegal is known as the gateway to Africa. The country's diverse environment has endowed Senegal with a variety of plant and animal life. It is from this rich, natural heritage that the country's national symbols were chosen, the baobab tree and the lion. So the first SDG is End Poverty. Senegal has a population of about 17 million people as of 2021, and nearly half of that population, 46.7% to be exact, are living in poverty. According to the World Bank collection of development indicators, population living in slums percentage of urban population in Senegal was reported at 29.5% in 2018. That is why in this case, almost half of the population of Senegal lives on less than $1.25 a day, and almost half of the population of Senegal is illiterate, and 22% of all children ages 5 to 14 are working and not in school. Since gross domestic product is a very important indicator of the economic strength of a country and a positive change is an indicator of economic growth, we have here the statistic that shows gross domestic product per capita in Senegal from 1986 to 2026. The World Bank reported that Senegal's GDP growth is too low for significant poverty reduction, but despite the fact that the Senegal poverty rate is high, many projects have been implemented to reduce the poverty rate. That is why the government's commitment to the extension of social protection is clearly stated in its National Development Vision 2035, which is the Plan Senegal Emergent. Such commitment is also reiterated in its National Social Protection Strategy 2016 to 2021. Hence, economic growth will be the key component in reducing poverty in Senegal. Next, we have SDG 2, Zero Hunger. Senegal ranks 37th out of 76 countries in the Global Hunger Index. Over the past decade, drought, floods, desert encroachment, and salination of arable lands, high dependency on local markets, persistently high food prices, and low resilience have compounded the food insecurity of Senegalese households and communities. One indicator is food insecurity. Figure 1 shows the widespread and some areas have more than 50% of their population experiencing food insecurity. Next indicator is the prevalence of undernourishment. According to the World Bank, undernourishment has steadily decreased over that same period, while undernourishment has actually increased in some of Senegal's neighbors. Next is the prevalence of underweight. In 2019, 16.1% of children under 5 are considered underweight. That is why Senegal has enacted two major government programs. First is the Plan Senegal Emergent, and the second is the Second Emergent Government Program in order to combat this problem. It is well known that hunger is strongly correlated with poverty, but in Senegal, one must also account for the rural-urban divide. As Senegal looks to climb out of commodity dependence into an era of strong, resource-rich farms that can be used to feed its population, it must leverage its stable government and ensure that food is reaching the people that need it most. The third SDG is good health and well-being. Senegal faces major human resources for health challenges, including a critical shortage of health workers in hard-to-reach areas. These shortages are more prominent in remote and rural areas and can weaken health system and patients' access to health services. In 2017, maternal mortality ratio for Senegal was 315 deaths per 100,000 live births. While the healthcare system in Senegal is improving, there is still a lack of effort to address health disparities within the population. As a result, only 32% of rural households have access to regular health care, but many organizations are working to provide and ensure wider access to health care in Senegal, such as the role of Centers for Disease Control and Prevention or CDC in providing medical services for HIV or AIDS through the HIV Sentinel Surveillance Program. Then the next SDG is quality education. The West African nation of Senegal has struggled with universal education like many other developing nations. A common misconception is that the education system in developing nations is bad and getting worse. However, education in Senegal is experiencing quite the opposite turn. The Senegalese education sector is divided into 4 levels, of which 2 are mandatory. Then, the primary school enrollment percent of all eligible children in 2019, Senegal ranks 4th with the lowest value of 82.07%. However, the United States Agency for International Development is working to better educate the children and young people of Senegal and strengthen the education system. The 5th SDG is gender equality. In Senegal, domestic violence is still considered a taboo subject. It is a private or family matter. The average age was 32, the mid-gen was 30, and the extremes were 17 and 58. In Senegal, the abortion law is both restrictive and unclear. Currently, some 31% of pregnancies in Senegal are unintended. In Senegal, especially in rural areas, girls are having more challenges in getting access to education than boys are. Then there's Senegalese law on parity, which obliges all political parties to place women and men in an alternating matter on candidate list. The next goal is clean water and sanitation. Senegal has faced important challenges in unequal access to potable water and sanitation services in urban and rural areas. In 2015, 75% of the population of Senegal had access to an at least basic water source and 48% had access to at least basic sanitation. That is why the Water and Sanitation Millennium Program, or PEPAM, served as an instrument through which the government of Senegal used to aim water supply and sanitation services in rural and urban areas. The 7th SDG is affordable and clean energy. Senegal electricity access reached 88% of the population in urban areas, while in rural areas is still limited to 38%, although increasing. Senegal is taking steps to move away from heavy fuel oil and coal towards solar and wind, while at the same time expand its energy capabilities. The next goal is Doesnt Work and economic growth. In Senegal, employment is one of the Senegalese government's and households' major priorities. So we have here the employment in agriculture, percentage of total employment from 1991 to 2019. The latest value from 2019 is 30.1%. However, the unemployment rate in Senegal decreased to 16.7% in the 4th quarter of 2020, and the maximum rate was 26.1% and minimum was 5.6%. In spite of high growth rates, economic gains are not reaching all citizens. The discussion recognized that no country or region in the world has achieved prosperity and a decent socio-economic life for its citizens without the development of a robust industrial sector. Next is the industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Infrastructure plays an important role in wealth creation and significantly contributes to a country's overall economic performance. Modern infrastructure is essential for human development and facilitating access to education and health services, particularly for the poorer segments of populations living in rural areas. In Senegal, it is important to make a distinction between transport infrastructure, roads, railways, ports and airports, and the telecommunications infrastructure. The development of transport and telecommunications infrastructure has been possible due to the government's efforts. It presently devotes about 470 billion CFA francs, equivalent to 940 million USD per year. It represents 11% of the country's GDP. Leadership and policy making. In line with the infrastructure industrialization nexus, infrastructure development should not be seen as projects but as industries and part of holistic programs bringing together different sectors as well as different government entities both within and across countries in order to maximize regional value chains. Policymakers must also strive to create conducive environments, including by establishing stable regulations. The 10th goal is reduced inequalities. In Senegal, where households extend far beyond the parents-children nucleus, the chances for unequal distribution of resources among household members are particularly large. The household structure is rather complex due to polygamy, to the frequent presence of foster children and extended family members. 41.8% of parliamentary seats are held by women, and 10.3% of adult women have reached at least a secondary level of education compared to 26.5% of their male counterparts. So the 11th SDG goal is sustainable cities and communities. When Senegal signed the Millennium Declaration in 2000, its environmental context was characterized by degraded forest resources, the accelerated loss of arable lands, soil erosion inside basins, reduction in soil retention capacities, and deterioration of the living environment, which hindered access to drinking water, sanitation, and social housing. However, in 2006, the Senegalese government introduced a strategy for sustainable development and sectoral environmental policies, which have led to improvements on indicators related to environmental protection. So here is the ratio for which the associated target is fixed at 2 in 2015, has seen an improvement given the results achieved in terms of forest management in order to ensure the charcoal production is entirely within forest management areas. 12th SDG goal is responsible consumption and production. We can see here that the most important measure in the energy balance of Senegal is the total consumption of electric energy per year. So Senegal can provide itself completely with self-produced energy, and along with pure consumptions, the production, imports, and exports play an important role. Other energy sources such as natural gas or crude oil are also used. That is why the CO2 emissions per capita in Senegal are equivalent to 0.55 tons per person. So the CO2 emissions increased by 3.69% over the previous year. Thus, in agriculture, one man in Senegal has created a lush oasis in the middle of the desert. Goran Ndayi is a pioneer of permaculture. Following his own success, he is now training the next generation of young Senegalese farmers, and in doing so, he hopes to change traditions and spread sustainable, ecologically friendly farming practices. Next, we have the climate action. Climate change poses a threat to Senegal's socio-economic development. Recognizing this, the Senegalese government and international and national institutions and organizations have begun to identify climate change impacts and develop adaptation strategies and mainstream adaptation into development planning. Dissemination is vital in supporting and strengthening stakeholder efforts. Furthermore, policymakers need additional institutional support and training on local and global climate change science impacts and vulnerabilities to support decision and policy making. The next SDG is life below water. The ocean covers 70% of the world's surface and provides for half of the oxygen in our atmosphere. This means that every second breath we take comes from the ocean, yet laws governing its appropriate use are almost non-existent. Today's maritime laws are outdated and have hardly developed in the past century. The next SDG is life on land. Human life depends on the earth as much as the ocean for our sustenance and livelihoods. Plant life provides 80% of the human diet, and we rely on agriculture as an important economic resource. That is why urgent action must be taken to reduce the loss of natural habitats and biodiversity, which are part of our common heritage, and support global food and water security, climate change mitigation and adaptation, and peace and security. The agricultural sector occupies the largest percentage of the population, employing 60% of the Senegalese labor force. Groundnut production, however, takes up 42% of all cultivated land, providing income for more than 1 million people. Each year, Senegal produces thousands of metric tons of peanuts with output depending on rainfall. The Senegalese government has made efforts to reduce dependence on groundnuts by diversifying cash and food crops by expanding cotton, rice, sugar, and market garden produce. The Great Green Wall Initiative of the Sahel is an example of a continent-scale nature-based solutions approach to tackle food security. According to the UNCCD 2020, Senegal was able to plant 11.4 million trees. 25 hectares of degraded land were also restored. The next SDG is peace, justice, and strong institutions. Renowned for its political stability, Senegal benefits from a pluralist democratic system. The presidential election in 2000 was the first peaceful transition of power from one political party to another since independence from France in 1960, with Abdoulaye Wade's liberal administration staying in office until 2012. As for individual rights, rape, female genital cutting, and domestic abuse persist in Senegal, with reports of violence against women generally on the rise. Corruption is also a serious problem, particularly with respect to public administration. Moreover, in the context of defining national priorities, the government understands that development is not possible without guaranteeing stability, peace, and security. Last SDG is partnerships for the goals. The Global Partnership for Development has been essential in terms of facilitating efforts to achieve the goals, particularly in developing countries such as Senegal. Migrant remittances have become important for Senegal's economy, and we can see here in the figure the evolution of migrant remittances from 1974 to 2010. Foreign direct investment or FDI is also an important source of external financing for the country. Senegal's membership in continental, regional, and sub-regional arrangements, as well as international organizations, is an opportunity to foster partnership with other countries, and it is evident in the PSE, where Senegal's trade policy strategy is to capitalize on opportunities offered by the United States African Growth and Opportunity Act of 2000. South-South cooperation may also enable Senegal to develop innovative strategies for cooperation. The SDGs overall are increasingly reachable and are transforming Senegal into a thriving, blended country and economy. Given the growth trends and public and private investment thus far, Senegal's future as a strong West African nation is very bright.